We begin with the woefulness that is the NFC East. And I got to say, if you wanted to pick one play to basically illustrate the NFC East in its most sordid and embarrassing essence this year, it would be Daniel Jones running wide open down the field, having run the read option to perfection. There is no one near him. He's going to house it. One of the longest runs for a quarterback in recent history in the NFL, and then he just falls. No one's near him. No one trips him. He wasn't trying to avoid a tackle by anyone. He just tripped and fell solely of his own volition before he could score. Ultimately, the Giants went on to score on that play, but they were unable to hold on to a fairly substantial lead. There wasn't much time left. I think 4.5 minutes left, and they had a lead of 21-10. The Eagles came storming back with 2 late touchdowns, and as a result, they pull away to win 22-21. And by pull away, I mean by a whisker, by a hair. And now the Eagles, with the robust record of 2-4-1, are in first place in the NFC East. And I got to tell you, I sat around like in my head trying to do the math, and I couldn't even figure out if 2-4-1 was better than 2-4. And ultimately, I had to pull up the standings, and the reason why 2-4-1 is better is it has a slightly better winning percentage, but we don't have to very often factor in win percentage in terms of who's got the better record, because it's not very often that we have a tie game scenario at play and also a one team having played more than another team. So in addition to being 2-4-1, the Dallas Cowboys are 2-4, but they've played one fewer game. And so as a result, right now, as we start the weekend with Friday, the Philadelphia Eagles are back in first place in the NFC East and poised to host a home playoff game, even though their record, nearly at the halfway point of the season, is now 2-4-1. What else did we learn from this game? Not a lot. I will say I think Carson Wentz has played himself pretty well, and that Travis Fulgham has come out of nowhere and is now a difference maker. And there are a lot of teams that are sitting around saying, why in the world did we not have this guy? But this is just an ugly game. For a long time early this year, it felt like the NFL had called off the excessive penalty calls, and now they're right back to throwing penalties that are very arbitrary on a regular basis. And it just isn't a good look, in my opinion, for the league. But again, Carson Wentz gets the win, and we are rolling into a crazy second half of the season in the NFL. All right? A couple of other things that are worth paying attention to out there, maybe just a decent roadmap for where we are headed. In addition to all of the NFL games going on, I'm going to give you my college football gambling picks at the end of the first hour. We're also going to talk with my guy, LT at Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham. And then for those of you out there who are big Major League Baseball fans, I know there's a lot of you, interesting World Series going on between the Rays and the LA Dodgers. And we are going to be breaking down all of that for you as well. But to me, the biggest mess and the most interesting aspect here is that the Eagles found a way to get another win, and they have now put themselves in position to put some pressure on the Cowboys, who are also playing a division game. Cowboys on the road, I believe, against Washington, the Washington football team, and we'll see how all of that shakes out. Now, the biggest and best and most important game that is going on in the NFL is clearly the Steelers going on the road against the Titans, and we're going to spend a decent amount of time breaking down that game. But to me, the most interesting part of the Steelers-Titans game is the degree to which we've underrated Ryan Tannehill and how much, if at all, is the Titan offense going to be impacted by losing Taylor Lewan but also getting back all of their players who had tested positive for COVID. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the show because it has got me super fired up how every time a coach tests positive or a player tests positive, it's a major story, but we never actually have anyone in the media follow up with that story and say, well, they tested positive, but there's no actual major issues with that because now they're coming back to work and they haven't had any major health concerns. And that's exactly what's going on with the Tennessee Titans. They just announced their backup tight end's going to be back. Their number 2 overall receiver, Corey Davis, going to be back. They got Adam Humphries back recently. A lot of their wide receiving core had issues. Jeffrey Simmons, their defensive tackle, everybody who had tested positive for COVID is now back. And if you're a gambler like I am, it's also interesting that Steelers-Titans line has moved from Steelers as a 2-point favorite back to Titans now as a 2-point favorite. I'm not sure where exactly it is going to settle. Okay, that's the biggest and best game. The worst game just happened last night, and I know probably a lot of you did what I did, which was watch the presidential debate while also keeping tabs on the NFC East game. And as much of a mess as the last presidential debate was, this presidential debate was actually, I thought, pretty substantive and pretty good. So it was the exact opposite of the NFC East, which is awful and typically without any positive substance at all. Dub, I talked about the NFC East in general. Is there any major takeaway that you had from last night's debacle of a game?
Well, if you're into bad football games, just sit tight and wait till Sunday when we have our next NFC East battle between the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington football team, because I have a feeling it could look something similar to what we saw last night.
I think there's a very strong chance that you're 100% right about that. And again, we had the big discussion earlier in the week about what I think the Cowboys should do, and that is not sit around and try to think about reasons to justify giving Dak a ton of money. To me, the best play is to get in the mix for Trevor Lawrence, and that's why I think ultimately the team that ends up winning the NFC East this year, it's a Pyrrhic victory. And what I mean by Pyrrhic victory is there's no long-term benefit to it. Because whether you're a fan of the Eagles, the Washington football team, the Cowboys, or the Philadelphia Eagles, whoever, the New York Giants, whatever the fourth team is that I didn't name there, whether you're an Eagles, Giants, Cowboys, or Washington football team fan, you're not going to advance anywhere in the postseason. I know you get to host a home football game in the playoffs, but your division is so bad that probably you're going to be an underdog in the playoffs against whoever you play. And what's the benefit of winning your division if you know your team really doesn't have a chance of advancing in the postseason? I understand, we could catch fire, catch lightning in a bottle. It doesn't happen very often. Usually there have to be substantial signs that your team is good. And your team is not good if they win a division with less than a 500 record, which seems very likely to end up happening in the NFC East. So we'll see what the Cowboys are capable of doing coming off of an atrocious loss on Monday night. We'll see whether the Washington football team can handle all the drama surrounding their quarterback position. Ron Rivera continues to give conflicting explanations for exactly why he's decided to kick Dwayne Johnson to the curb and decide to make Kyle Allen his quarterback. I don't know what the end result is going to be there, but I know it's unlikely to be very promising in the NFC East in general. All right, up next, we're going to break down more on the NFL and college football with my buddy Lance Taylor at the Lance Taylor on Twitter. Much to come in this program, but I would encourage you guys, if you love Outkick, and I know a lot of you do, go sign up for the Outkick VIP today. We've got a special offer, 30% off. If you go to Outkick.com right now, you will see that ad right at the top of the page. It ends at midnight tonight. 30% off a yearly VIP subscription. All you have to do is go click on the link right at the top of the page that is advertising for you. Go to Outkick.com and get signed up today.